Everyone, welcome back to another Mock Draft Monday. This is going to be my third Mock Draft Monday of this draft cycle. It's been a minute since I've done one of these. I think it's been like a month now. I also just haven't uploaded in a while, so I apologize for that. That's definitely going to change, especially as we get closer to the draft cycle. We're 50 days out from the draft lottery. There's like 10 games left in the regular season, so draft lottery odds are going to be situated finally once and for all. I know Nets fans have been, watching the tank and the standings change day to day. See injury reports, filled from the other tanking teams and stuff like that. So we are almost here. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been looking forward to the draft more than any other Nets game this entire season because that's kind of the only thing that matters. So yeah, be sure to like and subscribe because a lot of Nets related draft content's going to be coming your way, as long as just prospect stuff that doesn't really apply to just the Nets, but more so this entire draft class in general. I really think this is an interesting draft class, especially when you look at March Madness. Derek Queen obviously was one of the big stories of the first weekend with his game winner, or Jeremiah Fears playing really well against the defending champs in UConn. Trey Johnson having a great game in the first four. Like, a lot of these prospects deserve some hype and excitement because of their highs, but a lot of these guys outside of like Cooper Flagg basically have a lot of low lows that need to be discussed as well. So we'll talk about that. We're not going to be doing a mock draft basically, but Jonathan Wasserman, he's got some intel with Bleacher Report and stuff like that. So we're just going to be going through all these picks and just kind of talking about it, giving my thoughts. I'm going to be focusing more on the Nets picks and kind of what their approach should be as we get closer and closer to, the draft lottery and stuff like that. We know where all these picks are going to be, or where they could be in terms of the lottery, because the lottery is a crapshoot. I think that's something Nets fans need to be reminded of. But yeah, we're going to go through pick by pick. I'll give my thoughts on, some of them. Like, I'm not going to give my thoughts on Cooper Flagg to the Wizards. What does he say here? Jalen Johnson, Kevin Garnett. I don't really do the player comps, or I don't really like doing that. Yeah, he's having one of the best freshman seasons ever. I think that kind of just says enough. Dylan Harper, he had a great out-of-conference stretch. Obviously that injury, the flu, the ankle stuff definitely hurt him a bit, but there's no prospect close to Flagg. With that being said, though, Dylan Harper is still quite the exciting prospect. He quickly becomes the Jazz's best prospect. Not that that's saying much, but, I still am really intrigued by the idea of Harper. Obviously, there's stuff with, the shooting concerns and how good of a playmaker can he be? Is he going to be a primary initiator? I think all of those are valid questions, but his downhill ability is so special that I think he should remain, the number 2 guy for now. And the Hornets are taking VJ Edgecombe. It's interesting that Ace Bailey is no longer being taken third. That's kind of what it's been like for most of the season. It kind of has been changing over, the last few weeks, as Ace has, his season has already ended because Rutgers isn't in the tournament. He kind of only had one good month, man. I was definitely coming around to him after, the month of January. He was really good then. Had a lot of the bad indicators became good, or they were definitely getting better. It looked like it was trending up. And then he just took, one step forward, 2 steps back type shit. So yeah, that's definitely seeing what pick Aces is definitely going to be a story in itself come draft day. It might come down to, just what rebuilding team is the most desperate, It could be the Jazz if, maybe they fall, they're just going to take a swing because their rebuild hasn't really gone to plans yet. Maybe the Hornets, who have still yet to, make the play-in or make the playoffs with LaMelo. They actually did make the play-in with LaMelo a few years back. But yeah, VJ is definitely one of my guys in this draft, honestly. I love what he can do. Basically, I think the idea of VJ is really, really exciting. Just an athlete with, pretty good feel. I feel like a lot of the prospects who are athletic, don't tend to have good feel. I think VJ has good feel as a playmaker in the pick and roll. what's going to be exciting to watch with VJ is just what's the on-ball creation stuff looking like. So Ace does go the Pelicans here. I think this is a pretty, valid place to put him at 4th because when you look at the top 4, VJ, Ace, Harp, and Coop, those have kind of been the 4 guys since the preseason. I don't think the field has done anything else to challenge them. I don't think there's like a Reed Shepherd who's just completely risen, and blocked out any concerns because Reed, he was so good analytically that like the height and stuff, he was able to get picked 3rd even if it was a weaker draft. But yeah, so the Nets here take Derek Queen. Pro comparison, Alperen Sengun, you're going to hear that quite a bit. They take him over a guy like Trey Johnson. They take him a guy over Jeremiah Fears, Chase Richardson, Con Knipple, Kaman Malawach, Colin Murray Boyles, Kasparas. Wow, that's quite a good lottery here, man. I would consider basically every guy. I'm trying to think, are there any other guys that I think the Nets should consider here that aren't like right after? Like Sorber, not Sorber at 6. You can't do Sorber at 6. Yeah, so for the most part, every guy. It's interesting that he has Jaeger to 18 because every time Jaeger does something slightly good with the ball, it feels like Jonathan Givony tweets out that's why he's a top 5 pick, or that's why he's a top 4 pick, or that's why he's a top 10 pick. Like, I think Jaeger is going to go higher than what he should be come draft day. But yeah, the Nets take Derek Queen. This is a pretty interesting pick, and also the Nets are picking 5 here, which I think would be quite the recovery considering where they were a few weeks ago with draft odds and stuff like that. But yeah, the Sengun comparison, I think that's, again, I think it's lazy to make just pure comparisons, but I think the Sengun comparison is quite valid for Queen. And the reason why I say that is because, when we look at the Rockets, everyone's going to talk about, their defensive or how Sengun, what is he going to look like in a playoff scenario? He is a pretty special offensive player, but defensively, the concerns are there. The same can be said for Queen. Again, they're both very unique, very skilled offensive big men who, you can almost run your offense through, or that would be the idea with drafting Queen at 5. The one thing I will say about taking Queen at 5 is that, his playmaking feel, although I do think he's starting to get a bit overrated on where he's at as a playmaker right now, just with his overall production and, the assist numbers and stuff like that. I do think, taking a center with high field kind of fits what Jordy wants to do. We've seen it a lot with, Clax, or I think Sharp's a better comparison in that sense. Some of the games Sharp has had as, kind of just operating through the dribble handoffs, maybe getting, mismatches or, advantages through these dribble handoffs or setting screens, stuff like that, or just kind of initiating stuff for the Nets. I do think that's why Queen is going to be a valid guy to bring up in terms of the Nets drafting. But would I take him at 5? Probably not. I think Kaman Malawach is probably a better prospect. He might not be the sexier pick because he's just going to be a guy who blocks shots, catches lobs and stuff like that. The thing with Kaman that makes it interesting is he's not really the connector big man that I think Jordy's going to be looking for as he moves forward. And then that's going to be the conversation, the Nets scouting department's probably going to have. Do we think Kaman's, field can be fixed? Or do we think Queen's defensive stuff can just be covered up? Again, I just don't think Queen's archetype is the way you want to start a rebuild off, especially with the first pick in your rebuild. Maybe if the Nets draft Queen with their second pick, I think it's a lot easier to come around with that because you're not putting as much stock or value into Queen. But drafting him here is risky just because even if he is, let's just say he hits the heights of Naz Reid, another skilled big who can, put the ball on the floor, attack closeouts, play outside on the perimeter more, score for himself, stuff like that. What's the defense going to look like in the playoffs with Queen? Who's he going to guard? Is he a 4? Is he a 5? If he's a 5, is he going to be able to space the floor? If he's a 4, you're probably going to have to find a guy who, stretches the floor but defends really well defensively. Those archetypes just don't grow on trees. So that's why I'd be opposed to taking Queen F5. Although I do think he's a super fun player, and he'd be a really, really easy guy for Nets fans to root for as, their first pick. So who would I draft? I think Trey Johnson, with Jordy is a really, really exciting idea. I see Trey Johnson always compared to, Cam Thomas or just the microwave scorers who can't really play make, or at least that's what their college profile couldn't do. And while that is the case for Trey, that, he's not a great playmaker, I think the flashes he showed down the stretch as a playmaker, the willingness as a passer, is pretty exciting, especially when you throw him into, a coaching staff that had Shake Milton, getting double-doubles early on in the season, that, just giving Jordy a guy with Trey's scoring ability could be really, really useful, because I do think Jordy could help round out the rest of the game with Trey Johnson. And I think his profile in the long term is a lot easier to get behind Queen, because you're not asking Trey, maybe he's not going to be a defensive, average or, plus on that end, but he's going to give you positional size. You're not asking him to anchor a defense the way you'd probably be asking Queen, or the way you'd have to, cover up a defense or cover Queen up defensively, I should say. And then you just get an incredible shot maker. Again, I know people are going to say, oh, but he doesn't fit with Cam Thomas. Well, Cam Thomas should not be factored at all. I don't think he did enough this season. Obviously, he got hurt, which is unfortunate, but just the playmaking and the defensive stuff is just still not good enough. Now, he's so special of a shot maker that I do think you got to consider bringing him back, especially when you're going to have most of the leverage in those negotiations. But the Nets should not be passing up on Trey Johnson because of Cam Thomas, or anyone for that matter. You shouldn't be not drafting Derek Queen because you have Clax and Derek Queen, or Day'Ron Sharpe. Jeremiah Fears is another guy, you could pick, top 5, or I think he's going to be a conversation to be had. I think I'm higher on Fears than most, and that's just because I think the highs have been really great. I believe in the fact that he could develop as a shooter long term, because of how good his touch around the rim, his finishing around the rim. He gets to the line, he makes free throws. The playmaking development would definitely be ugly at times, but I think it's different when you compare it to a Cam Thomas, to a Trey Johnson. I think Fears could actually become a truly plus playmaker, where with Trey Johnson, you're kind of asking him to, just be a secondary guy, or just be able to, find the open man, or, know how to use your scoring gravity to your ability to make plays easier for other guys. I think Fears is definitely more advanced in that regard, especially for a 17-year-old. And I also think the Nets drafting Fears and using next year as kind of, all right, Fears, you really should be a freshman in college. We're just going to let you hoop. We're going to lose a lot of games probably with that process, more than this year with a lot of vets, a lot of guys fighting for their jobs. If next year's the Jeremiah Fears developmental season or whatever, it's probably going to be a lot of ugly basketball, but it could also be, we might get a stretch in March where Fears looks like, maybe his sophomore year, he's going to really, really become a player that why you take him at 5. And then boom, you have your guard, or you have your answer at point guard for the rebuild, and you have top 3 odds in a go-to draft class. Jace Richardson, I don't think I'd reach for him at 5. But he's just his profile at this point is more safer than I think Fears, just because of how good of a jump shooter he is, how good he's been on and off the ball. He rarely turns the ball over. He rarely makes mistakes. I think defensively he holds his own. He's probably the best you can get at 6'3". I really like the Jared McCain comps. I think he's got a bit more juice than McCain, but yeah, Jace would be a really, really good second pick. The last guy I'm going to talk about in terms of this pick is Concanipple, which, by the way, Concanipple going to the Spurs would be really scary for the rest of the league. Him being able to play off Fox, be hidden defensively, under Wemby, be, that secondary third playmaker. That's kind of been the case of the role he's played at Duke. He goes from one generational guy to the next. This would be really scary, but I see, Concanipple's kind of become the poster boy for Nets fans in terms of this guy, if we draft him with our first pick, the rebuild was a failure or this year was a failure. Honestly, I may have agreed with you in November or December, but I think the stuff Knipple has shown, the fact that he's more than just, a good catch and shoot guy, he's shown a lot on the ball. He's shown that he can be a decent finisher. I wouldn't probably draft him at 5 just because of the athletic concerns. Ultimately, I think I'd probably draft either Trey or Fears. After that, maybe Knipple. I just don't think I'd draft Queen at 5 because the defensive concerns. Now, if you buy the jump shot, you could throw him next to Clax and see how things go there. But yeah, picking 5 in this class is going to be really, really interesting because, as I'm yapping on for however many minutes, you can really bring up 8 guys. I haven't even mentioned Colin Murray-Boyles, who I think would be a great fit under Jordy with his ability to pass and connect be a connecting piece offensively, and not even mentioning how special he is defensively. He showed a lot of on-ball creation juice down the stretch. If the Nets are picking 5, there's a lot of ways they can go right and also a lot of ways they can go wrong. That's just kind of how, the prospects in that range are going to go. Kasparas at 12. He's getting some top 5 buzz earlier. I definitely think, him falling this much is warranted. He was playing off ball in some of Illinois' games down the stretch, man. I honestly think Will Riley has an argument to be the better prospect just because, he's a wing who's shown so much down the stretch for a guy who hasn't even grown into his body yet. He shows the playmaking feel. I'm talking about Riley. He's a good jump shooter. He's, crafty enough around the rim. And again, he's kind of a project still, but yet he's been able to produce in a Big Ten for a tournament team. I think that's really impressive. Do I think Kasparas is going to be like a bust? Probably not, just because of his passing feel, and I think he still is a promising jump shooting prospect. I just think he's kind of a flawed prospect. Like all these guys we're talking about, like all these guys have 1 or 2 things that you can easily talk yourself out of. With KJ, it's, his defensive athletic handle creation, on-ball creation stuff. His turnovers have been really, really bad. Murray-Boyles at the end of the day is a 6'7" tweener who can't really shoot. That's going to cause concern. Kaman has no feel as a passer, really just as on anywhere on the floor. Now, to be fair, he just started playing basketball, but especially in Jordy's system that I think requires a lot of good feel, the ability to make passes and be connected defensively with his principles. I think that would cause some growing pains. Knipple's obviously not the best athlete or defender. Jace is undersized and hasn't really shown much as an on-ball playmaker. Fears is 17 and had some really, really bad stretches, and he's still just, a kid. He's like 18. There would be a lot of growing pains there, especially for a Nets team that kind of, gives people the idea that they want to make this rebuild quick. Trey, has a lot of profile issues, with his shot diet and stuff like that. You can really criticize all these guys, man. I think a lot of it's going to come down to who fits under Jordy. And when I look at guys who, could maybe really excel under Jordy, I look at Colin Murray-Boyles, I look at Jeremiah Fears, I look at Trey Johnson, because I think Jordy's system that evolves a lot around, playmaking, I think those guys can either grow or really excel in. what's interesting is that Jordy always says shoot more threes, shoot more threes. You look at a guy like Fierce, Queen, Colin Murray, Boyles, who all are not good shooters right now, or are all not good shooting prospects right now. That could either be a good thing or a bad thing, because me personally, I'd probably want Derek Queen shooting 4 threes if the Nets drafted him, because he's going to have to be able to do that, probably to be a 4 instead of a 5, because he's not going to be able to survive as a 5 defensively. So, Jordy emphasizing that or making that a point of emphasis for Derek Queen would be really good. Same goes for Colin Murray Boyles, because if Colin Murray Boyles had a jumper, he'd probably easily be a top 3 prospect in this draft, because he'd be a great, jumbo big man who can pass, shoot, and defend at a really high level. So I think Colin Murray Boyles, man, can really, have an argument to go top 5 for the Nets, because I think he might honestly be one of the better fits with Jordy in terms of what he can do now and what Jordy can get him to do later, with, the principles he's kind of shown Nets fans and what he has. Asa Newell, I don't think the Nets really consider him at all. I think he's kind of not a mad prospect, but just a guy who I haven't really been moved by. I think there's some tweener stuff with him. What I will say is he's definitely shown the willingness to be a good jump shooter, and I think that's why he's probably going to return some pretty damn good value at the end of the day. Noah Senge, he's another guy, man, maybe definitely not at 5, but, let's say emergency, the Nets fall to pick 9 or something like that. Senge's got a lot of good feel. He's got a lot of good tools. I think Jordy has shown he can really, be a good development coach. You could throw Senge in there. He's shown some juice as a passer. He's got a really good assist-to-turnover ratio. He's got a lot of tools defensively. There are a lot of guys, especially as you go down. And another thing with this draft class is I think there are a lot of guys that might be wasted picks. Like Liam McNeely, Jaeger Demon, I think both of those guys are going lotto. You can even make an argument that Fears and Queen going lotto would kind of be a good thing because of their flaws. They might just not be or return lottery pick value, and that could be beneficial for the Nets if they capitalize on such. Let's say the Jazz fall to 6, and they take Jaeger Demon because BYU and the Jazz have this weird connection or whatever. That could mean a Trey Johnson or a Murray Boyles or someone falls for the Nets that, they can pounce on. Spurs, Carter Bryant, if the Nets take Carter Bryant with their second pick, they would have to do a lot to, fuck up the draft or make it a bad draft. I really, really like Carter Bryant. Again, another guy where, Jordy telling even guys who aren't good shooters like Keon Johnson and Zaire Williams to just keep shooting. I think that'd be so good for Carter Bryant, especially in his first few years if, he's just told, shoot the hell out of the ball. That's how you're going to become a better shooter. The defensive stuff is really good. Obviously, I don't think there's much else there with Carter Bryant, but I think he's going to be the next, 3-and-D, prototype guy. He's every time he plays for Arizona, they're a better team with him on the court. Ben Serif, I just can't buy him without the jumper, man. Not much there. Jaeger Demon, that's definitely a guy you can convince me, with a late round pick for the Nets. Because the playmaking stuff's really good. I think that would be kind of really fun with Jordy, because he would probably be the best playmaker the Nets would have under Jordy in terms of skill. I know D'Angelo Russ is definitely up there, but some of the passes Demon can make is really good. My thing with Demon is I think he's just going to be sped up way too much as an athlete, as a ball handler, where he's really going to struggle those first few years. And if he doesn't gain a jumper, who knows what type of value he's going to return. So now here we have the Nets' second pick. They're taking Nolan Traore, a guy who was, projected top 5. I think this is a good time to say, should the Nets use all 5 picks or whatever? I would probably say, yeah, they should. Maybe not all 5. Maybe you want to trade back or trade out of, this draft and, maybe get a late 2026 for, maybe a contender who really likes a prospect, but they don't have a pick or something like that. The Nets actually did that one year, I think. I think they did that the Claxton year, where they traded the 27th pick, who was like Mofongu, the guy from Florida State, and then they got like a future first for next year. Like just something like that I think could be really useful. But yeah, I think the Nets should definitely stash like 4 guys in, the first year of a rebuild, and that way you can organically tank, let's say you don't land a Flag or a Harper, or a top pick, and you can kind of let those 4 or 5 guys play through their mistakes, and you probably lose a lot more games than you do with, the vets we have right now, or the guys like Keon Johnson who are like fighting for their careers right now. You probably lose a lot more with, a bunch of teenagers playing. So yeah, with Traore, I'm not gonna lie, I just haven't watched him as much because, he's not in college. It's harder to watch. But, the idea of him is definitely intriguing. The idea of him being able to, pressure the rim really well, that's super valuable. That's another thing Jordy really emphasizes. It's just, can he shoot the ball? Can the Nets fix that jumper? That's, that would be a question. But here, late round, let's say you have a Trey Johnson or, a Con Murray Boyles, a guy that you think is going to be able to comfortably return starter value at the end of the day or something close to that, you can swing for the fences because Traore might not be an NBA player, to be honest with you, or he might just be a backup. But maybe he could be a starter if that three-pointer, comes around because he does have good size, he does have pretty good playmaking tools, and he does pressure the rim. So that would be the type of swing that you'd want to see the Nets make at pick 20. Noah Penda's a really good win now guy. Like if the Nets just drafted a bunch of win now, the older prospects, I would come like they do not have to take, the ceiling picks. I think a great example of this is like the Saloon pick for the Hornets. Like that was a pure upside pick, and it's probably going to be a disaster because Saloon's prospect profile was just not good at all. Like that's the risk you take with Fears. Like Fears' profile right now, you're banking on a lot of stuff like the 3-point shot or like the playmaking to get better. What if it doesn't? With Penda, the only thing you kind of have to be concerned about is the 3-point shot. And if that does come around, you're looking at an incredible role player connecting piece. So that's definitely something. Like if the Nets drafted Nick Clifford at 20, I would get behind that because I know Nick Clifford's probably going to be able to return NBA value. Now, with the older guys, Clifford kind of struggled in the big games this year for Colorado State. So he did bad in the combine last year as well. So there is, the competition factor, and that's a real concern for a guy that's 24. But again, like the Nets, if they take a quote-unquote safe pick with Knipple, and then they take, I don't know, like who's a safe pick here? Like Rasheer Fleming, like an upperclassman, you kind of know what he is at this point. Like I wouldn't hate that. And again, all these prospects are going to have like flaws or questions about them. It's going to be about, what are you going to bank on? Like the Nets drafting Will Riley again with a later 20 pick, I would love that because I think the highs with Will Riley are really awesome. He's shown so much offensively. And again, he's 6'8", 180. Like he has ways to go physically, but the fact that he's been able to be pretty productive is really exciting. So right now, with these Nets picks, I'd probably do it where I'd draft, maybe Trey Johnson or Murray Boyles at 5. And then I'd probably draft Will Riley here. I think he's probably the best player available, and he's a really good swing as a wing, especially if the Nets don't retain some of their wings. The Dariq Whitehead experiment's kind of over before it even started. So yeah, Thomas Sorber is a really fun center prospect, especially if the shot comes around. If it doesn't, maybe there is some concern, but his production was really impressive. I like what he does defensively around the rim with his touch. I think he's going to be a good player, man. Isaiah Evans at top 25 is kind of overzealous, but he's just such a good shooting prospect that I think, if a team drafts him in the first round, not the worst thing in the world. Rasheer Fleming, if the Nets think the shot is real, this would be a good pick. He's got good, measurements, 6'9". He's athletic. 63s, 40 dunks. That's some good stuff, man. Clear stretch 4 roll. He's good defensively. He can finish it around the rim. I really like Rasheer Fleming, man. I think he's like, I don't know where he is on the board I just did, actually. He's definitely like lottery though. And I think there is a world where he could go lottery to like maybe like the Spurs or someone like that. Now Danny Wolf, I probably would stay away from Danny Wolf. He's another guy in quote unquote like Jordy's system, I guess, because he'll play or a big man that can, initiate things offensively. I just think he turns the ball over too much, and athletically he's kind of wonky. He's older. He's only 20, but like he is an older prospect. Shooting from 3, he is an interesting pick, and it would be a swing I could probably get behind, but you look at other guys, Yaxel Landenborg, his production's been really good. I think I'd probably lean towards, if you're going big man, JT Toppin a bit more, Janai Broom, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Ray Nude can shoot the hell out of the ball. I think, he doesn't really do much elsewhere well, but, that's a guy you can kind of bring in because of how valuable stretch 5s have become. That's why I really like Kalkbrenner a lot. So, yeah, let's say we take Trey Johnson, and then at 19, maybe you take Will Riley, then maybe Traore falls to 26. You can take Traore there. If he's not there, then I'd probably stick it out with Fleming, or I would definitely stick it out with Fleming. I think Fleming at 26 is incredible value. If the Nets drafted him at 20, I'd easily get behind it because, again, I think there's an argument for him to be lottery if you buy the jumper, because he definitely did have a bit outliers of a year there. Probably wouldn't draft Danny Wolf. I'd maybe look at Janai Broom, although I do think Janai Broom being undersized is going to be a problem. I think the same can be said with JT Toppin, but I think his touch and his motor as a rebounder is really good. Ray Nude's a guy. Boogie Flan, I kind of cooled off of. I don't think he gained anything from returning from the tournament. I just don't think he's going to be good enough inside, the paint to return value. But in the second round, maybe his ability as a jump shooter and a pick and roll guy. And then Joan Behringer's just a swing. He's just an athlete who can, block shots and catch lobs. I kind of don't like those type of picks. Then, a lot of the unks are being taken here. Chaz Lanier, Walter Clayton. I'm probably not drafting either one of those guys, to be honest with you. I could definitely get more convinced with Clayton Jr. because of how special of a shot maker he is. I mean, Lanier's kind of the same thing, and he's taller, but I don't know. A lot of the games Lanier's played in with big teams or in big games, he's kind of struggled. Ian Jackson's kind of Cam Thomas in the sense that he just can't pass the ball right now. I really like LeBaron Philon. I'd probably take him with that second-round pick the Nets have. And again, the Nets could, maybe combine 24 and 26 and trade up a few spots if they really like a guy or get into the late teens. But yeah, LeBaron Philon, he's had an up and down season for a freshman, but I think his touch and, the acceleration stuff is really, really good. Another guy who, his other metrics can kind of suggest that there is hope for a three-point shot to come around. And again, if he's in Jordy's system, chucking up threes, that could be beneficial for him. Adu Thero, he's hurt right now, but another guy, he's just a great athlete. He has really grown offensively, even if he's still kind of a non-shooter. He's a great athlete. Kalkbrenner going at 42 is really, really good value. I think he's just going to walk in and, at worst, be a very solid backup big. Uzin's definitely an NBA guy. Alex Condon, I think, really fits Jordy's system a lot. He's got super good feel as a passer, as a big man. And again, I think that's something that's going to fit Jordy's system, something he's going to be looking for. And yeah, the jumper, he's shown some flashes, but that's going to be a concern. That's going to be a swing skill for him. Bennett Sturts is definitely a first-round pick, man. His performance against Missouri was special. He competes defensively. I think he can survive on that, and he makes the right decision every time in the pick and roll, especially the fact that he had no guy over 7 foot. That is really, really impressive stuff for the metrics he had and the efficiency that he had in the pick and roll. Now, does he declare? Does he follow McCollum to Iowa? Who knows? Darren Williams, I'm probably not drafting him just because, he's not really a great athlete. The jumper. Tyrese Proctor is not the 48th best prospect. If the Nets drafted Tyrese Proctor in the first round, I'd get behind that man. He has been so fucking good for Duke. The heater he has been on as a shooter this year has been special. I've seen the Derek White comp thrown around a lot, and I could get behind that man for sure. Sergio Delara or whatever his name is, I definitely have to look at that guy a bit more. But the idea of him stands out for sure for me. Xavier Lee is kind of fun, but I'm probably not going crazy for him. Zion James, I've always thought Zion James could be an NBA player, man. He's just got a great body, pause, super strong, can get downhill, and it's just a winner, man. He knows the question for him would be the jumper, but if he's a good spot-up shooter, as this says right here. If the jumper can stick, he could definitely be rotation type level guy. Rocco Zakarsky, man, what happened? He was getting first round buzz, lotto buzz earlier on. Avicic, I like his brother more. I think his brother's a better playmaker and has a bit better feel. Andrei Stojakovic is a dog. Is he ready? I think he could probably stay. Donovan Dent needs to get a jumper, even though I love his game. And yeah, that's going to do it. Let me know your thoughts on this style, or if you guys prefer me to just do a straight up mock draft. I kind of like doing this, to be honest with you, because I kind of just yapped about a bunch of prospects and my thoughts on them, or how the Nets should approach the draft, or how these prospects can fit with Jordy, and what the Nets are trying to build here. But yeah, if you enjoyed, leave a like. I'm definitely going to post different types of draft content, more, I guess, formal or evaluation-based or scouting-based content is definitely going to be on the way soon. So if you haven't already, again, please like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys all shortly in the next video, and peace.